Hello, Playdate. This is Don.
This is Nick.
And I'm Ryan.
This week we are covering Playdate news,
Recent indie releases,
And a little bit of the old Tintagel
all of
at
the
Pixel
above.
Panel.
Thank you for listening. Let's get started. First up, I wanted to mention the Tiny Yellow Machine Playdate Community Direct coming July 6th, just a couple days from now. There'll be links in the show notes.
You preempted me, Don. You preempted me because I have to give a little boopity boop 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 news and notes to start out the show. Sorry, go on.
I gotta edit that out. So check it out. I think it'll be streaming on Twitch and probably YouTube. But check out the links in the show note and get excited. I think there are many, many game reveals and other notifications, news items related to our favorite little tiny yellow machine. So be sure to hop on that.
Nice. Good little post-freedom celebration for us in the United States and, a great Playdate celebration for everyone else. I think that's our only news and note, though, right?
Yeah, that's it. We can get right into
our indie inventory. Boy, those were some really closely successive boops we had this episode.
We're moving at a fast clip this time.
Mm-hmm.
Some quick catalog updates. Playdate catalog right there on your Playdate device. A big release, something that has been eagerly anticipated for months and months and months. P Racing finally hit the Playdate. The fantastic kart racing game by Resolve Productions. So it's got CPU controlled components, 11 missions in a city with simulated traffic, online leaderboards, challenge, a photo mode, and you can use the D-pad or the crank. It's also got sort of a Rocket League style soccer mode. And it's even the scoreboards are also right here on the catalog page. That's really cool.
Wow. Nice integration.
I don't see your names on here. Good Sock apparently is just dominating most of the leaderboards.
Uh-oh. Good Sock. Looks like Tavi's besting you on track 0. Got to get after that one.
Get back in there.
Except for the fact, this is very strange. Are you guys also seeing... Oh, wait. No. What is happening? So the number 1 is 33,000, but the number 10 is 34,000. They go in descending order. So is number 10 the best? This is very strange.
Oh yeah, number 10 must be the best. Huh. Yeah, we'll have to contact somebody.
All right.
We will wake up the president, let him know
something's happening there.
Yeah, so I guess Good Sock has that number 10th place in lock. Something, I don't know. Anyway, great game. Check it out. I've only played a little bit so far, but yeah, very fun game. Next up, Pocket Planner, which is exactly what it sounds like, a little pocket planner on your Playdate. Pretty cool. You can have all your guacamole recipes right there in your pocket. Stars of the screen. Yes, Ryan.
Yes.
Ryan, you take over. You do the catalog update.
Oh, gosh, please no. But I was going to say, this so reminds, by this I mean Pocket Planner, this so reminds me of my, early to mid-aught Palm Pilot days. This is really giving me good vibes here. I didn't expect it to when I clicked into it, but man, this looks amazing.
Don, did you see, this is semi-related, but did you see, and Ryan, you too, you can listen to this too, Ryan. Did you see the news about the work boy that was found, the prototype?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh gosh, Tell me all about it.
So this is a Game Boy add-on that essentially added PDA functionality to the Game Boy, the original. And anyway, somebody found a prototype and got it up and rolling.
I Googled it. It was found in 2020.
Yeah.
Oh, that's recently?
Recent-ish, yeah.
Moving
in the scheme of the universe, Don.
I mean, we didn't know about it.
All right, adding that to the show notes. I did find my Sega IR7000 this past week.
There we go. Yeah.
Which is like a Sega PDA, so pretty cool.
Okay.
Ryan, you're running the ship on the
Playdate catalog. Am I? Okay. Let's see. We got scrolling back up. Stars of the Screen. What's that? It's made by Mouflon Cloud, and Stars of the Screen hides something in its miniature tributes to screensavers and games. Can you find it? Question mark. It might be a control scheme. It might be a game. It might be a joke. It might be a tear in the corner of your eye. It might be a message. Can you find it? I'm not sure that I can, but maybe you can. Here it is on catalog for a measly $6. Thoughts on Stars of the Screen?
Well, there's
Because
lots
it's
of
followed.
thoughts on our, I think it was episode 19 where we reviewed it
Mm-hmm.
back in December. So go check out that episode, Ryan.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to listen to that.
Packed full of thoughts.
All right.
Very good game.
Followed up by another banger from our friends over at Scenic Route Software. That is Greed. So Greed is a dicey type of game for 1 to 4 players that you can play on the Playdate. The goal of the game is to reach 10,000 points before anyone else and maintain that lead during the final round to achieve victory. So if you've taken anything away from this show, it's that we are fans of Scenic Route games. He's working on another one coming up here that's very different from all the rest of his games. Can we can scoop this, right? I mean, it's been Twittered
out there. Yeah.
So he's working on an endless runner game that is a skateboarder. And so you're endlessly skateboarding. And the most recent update I saw about it was that he added his own drum tracks. So Mr. Scenic Route Software plays the drums, and he plays the soundtrack for this new game that he's making. It sounded amazing. There's even a little like boom when you crash your skateboard. So like even the sound effects are drumming. Really, really neat. Anyway, little scoop on the Scenic Route Software, followed by Treasure Chasers. This is one that we mentioned a while back on a show where I was awake, and Treasure Chasers is a pirate-themed game where you navigate through procedurally generated islands, picking up cargo and delivering delivering to other ports to sell. Besides the whirlpools, there are also pirates that are out to get you. So now it's available on catalog. Sweet. Trying to see where things left off. Are these next two new releases?
Yes, after that we got new releases. The new releases just sat there with no new releases for like 2 weeks, and then today, bam, it went up by 7.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I had to dig back, though. I think they were like placeholders that got populated or something.
Huh.
So I found this game by Squipture called Dove War, or Dove and War. It's a visual novel, Nick. It's $1.99.
You have my
control
interest.
The fate of the Second World War. You, Nick, control the fate. So check that out. There is also a demo if you want to give it a look. So pretty interesting. Next up by Corey B is called Texum. It's a poker game.
The interface for this looks amazing.
Mm-hmm. This one I actually played a little bit of, and it was really fun. Really fun little 5-card draw poker game, but there's little cutscenes with the different characters you're playing against and whatnot. They all have different personalities, so very, very cool.
That is a free one.
It's free.
In case anyone was wondering.
I cannot believe that it's free, but very, very well polished.
Wow.
I love that they've switched the gray and black color scheme to off-white and brown for this Texum game. Yeah. That's lovely. I appreciate that. Texum for Playdate or whoever this is by.
Only on the itch page, unfortunately. Not on the Playdate itself.
Right.
Yes. Next up is Closed Circuit by another developer. And it says it's an original game by the 4th AD from last year for the Black and White Jam. And this is a port, an unofficial port. But man, this is such a cool little puzzle game. It's pretty short, but I'm so glad they ported this over and that I had a chance to play it. So this is free. I highly recommend everybody to give this a shot. Just a cute little puzzler. Really, really well polished and whatnot. Yeah, cannot say enough good things about it. So give it a shot.
Cool.
Again, that was Closed Circuit.
And it's also free.
Also free. Yeah. Continuing our free streak is Poser by Toad, also known as Totally Under Control, but Toad on our Discord. And this is like a little mask for your Playdate. So it has different eyes and mouths and whatnot to put on your Playdate screen. So it was very hard for us to get the picture of the Playdate logo for our podcast image, our podcast user pick. I had to run through the menu like 5 times just to get that picture. And so this takes that away. You just put a face on it. You can animate it if you want. All kinds of different settings. It's free. Throw a little face on there. Take all the pictures you want. Pose it in different applications and areas of your life. And there you go.
I like this. I like this comment by Kiwi on the page that says, "Finally, my Playdate is photogenic."
It's got to be like the most photogenic console, right?
Gotta be, yeah.
You're not going to get arguments from us.
Right. From Swan Chime is a game called 11th. It deals with some pretty heavy subject matter. So if you're an adult, I'd recommend checking the description out first. But that is out. And there are also a lot of other games from that developer in the similar vein. So if you're interested in some adult material, check out 11th. And last up,
that one is not free. We ended our free streak. That one's $5. Yes. As is the next one. This is our $5 streak.
Yes. Next up for $5 is Picky Ricky by Cole Plus Games. And this is a cute little carrot picking game with a little bunny character. So it's a side-scrolling platformer. Looks super polished, super cute. I don't know. I have not had a chance to play it yet, but I did watch the trailer and looked really impressive. So I hope to play it sometime soon.
That does look really cute and like infinitely legible. That looks really great.
I love the nice, fat, thick black lines and whatnot. Very legible.
Yep.
Great selection. Very diverse selection this week.
Applause. Good job, Don.
Good job, devs.
Good job, devs. Exactly.
All right. That brings us to... Are we ready? Are we ready? Okay. That brings us to our boo pixel panel for today. This was a choice by moi. I thought we'd go with a little Castle Tintagel. This was burning up the Twitterscape a couple weeks ago, and I thought, why the heck not? So we all purchased our copy. It is available for $8.99, worth every last of the 99 cents. This is by Pixelated Opus. And let's describe this game here real quick. It says, at Castle Tintagel, you will embark on an epic quest of revenge in this nostalgic retro action platformer exclusively built for the Playdate. Play as Gawain, the last remaining knight of the Round Table, and fight your way through the evil that Morgana has unleashed onto the world. Take down epic bosses with aid of Merlin and Guinevere in the fight to reclaim Tintagel Castle from the evil sorceress Morgana. That pesky Morgana. So just to sum this up in a sentence, if you like Castlevania, you're going to like this game. This is a very Castlevania-esque game. And I would go so far as to say it's a pretty unforgiving game, but it got an update over the course of the past couple weeks that allowed some options, some mild options to allow more save states or not save states. What do you call those, Nick?
Checkpoints.
Thank you. And also decrease the number of hits that each enemy requires. So thank you to Nick for alerting us to that update, because that sure helped me progress a little further in the game. I don't know about you guys, but I was sure enjoying my time with this. You know, I'm focusing on not just gameplay, but because I'm an artist, I want the game to look good, and this game sure does. I thought it was super smart what they did with the player design. The player design is made of mostly white pixels, and you'll see on each level the player is basically traversing this all black background. So again, we're thinking about legibility here, especially for us ancient people who are talking right now. I thought it was really legible, but at the same time did not sacrifice, detail in the character designs and the enemy designs in the environment. It felt like a really fully realized world and game to me. I'm hoping that nobody's cringing at that $9 price point, because you shouldn't. This game is really fleshed out to the point where I have not completed it, even on the easier modes, even on the options. What did you guys think about this before I keep yammering?
Go ahead, Don.
Oh, so I wasn't gonna say much because this is not a Don type game, but then I was thinking there are probably listeners that are, this game is not for, so there's some value in my opinion as well. So I will share. Yeah, I'm not into punishing or challenging games. I'm very much like into more chill type experiences, puzzle games and whatnot on the Playdate. So that said, yes, this is a super polished game. The chiptune music is excellent. Graphics are excellent. Even the playstyle is very good. I grew up playing Castlevania as well. Was terrible at it as well. But I appreciate what it is. And I appreciate what this is. I watched the trailer. There's like a 2-minute trailer or so on YouTube. I'll put that in the show notes as well. Well worth watching that just to see what this is capable of and what the Playdate's capable of in an action game, because it's pretty impressive. That said, I was beating my head against this even in the easy mode, and like I kept dying on like the second screen and whatnot. And it's just not for me. It's just I was not having fun. When I was getting hit 4 times by the second guy because my movements were not perfect and whatnot, and my timing was off. I'm into and then you only get 3 lives, and then you got to start the game over and whatnot. I'm into if you run out of hearts, you go back to the checkpoint, whatever. But infinite lives, I'm more in that stage of my life. I need infinite lives so I can slowly progress my way through a game, and I'm okay being that guy where I just am not going to spend the time and dedication on one game to master it. And then this is that type of game. You guys are more adept at this type of game, and that's great too. I know that you have the skills to get the full experience out of this. And every game doesn't have to be everything to everyone. And
That is true.
I can appreciate what it is. It is not for me. I don't regret buying it or anything, because maybe my kids will enjoy it. Maybe someday I'll be in the mood for a tough as nails game. And it's not like impossible. And I was even reading some of the comments. The dev said that you can complete the game without taking any hits or losing a life. And just looking at the GIFs, there's like this man-eating plant that shoots 3 beams. I don't see how you can jump over those without taking a hit. But Nick,
you'll find out when you get there.
Nick might reveal a way to do that. Anyway, if the dev says it's possible, then I believe it's possible. We've all seen Mario Maker levels that seem impossible.
Yeah.
And Mario Maker, you have to complete the level to submit the level. So, Anyway, that's my 2 cents. I'll probably be pretty quiet from here on out. But Nick, what do you think?
I love Castlevania as a series. So much so, I love the concept of vampires. I love medieval literature, and I love medieval history, European history, and the mythos of Camelot and King Arthur and so forth. So this is like they had a target painted on me and shot me with an arrow by cranking and then hitting the B button, Ryan. Essentially, if you've played Castlevania Adventure for the Game Boy, the first one, the player character moves in an almost identical way to Simon Belmont in that particular entry. It's very slow. It's very methodical because the original Game Boy could only render so many frames, and it had to be legible and clear. That was a big topic of discussion when coming from the NES, where Simon moved a little faster. People tended not to like the Game Boy entry because it was it was a lot more slowly paced. But there was a lot of verticality in the Game Boy entry, where you would scroll screens that was not present in the NES version. In other words, the camera would follow Simon in the NES version, but in the Game Boy version, it was essentially a vertical slice at a time, and then you would climb ropes or whatever to traverse up and down. Anyway, what's really cool about this game is that they looked obviously very closely at those early Game Boy Castlevania games and implemented a lot of the good or interesting mechanics from those games, but then they also improved them in a lot of different ways. For example, in Castlevania, the classic Castlevania games, when you jump, you're committed. So as soon as you start moving and you hit a button, you're sailing on until the end of that jump. And it doesn't matter what happens, you're going to get knocked out of the sky by an eagle or whatever. You're toast. But in this game, you can actually alter the course of your jump after committing, after hitting the button. And that is so freeing compared to Castlevania, which is so much more punishing in that regard.
I'm nodding vigorously for listeners who can't see me. Yes, totally.
I'm watching Ryan just nod up and down this whole time. There are a few other things that were done that are improvements to the Castlevania formula. For example, you have a sub-weapon in Castlevania. So you have your whip, which has a particular reach. It always extends to the front of you. There's no angling that in any different way in those Castlevania games. In this game, you have a sword. So the sword has a particular arc. It's basically right in front of you, but there's a very tiny area right above you where I believe it can actually hit things too. Or I lucked out when I hit stuff in the arc. At any rate, that's an improvement. But the sub-weapons are things like throwing daggers or axes or whatever in traditional Castlevania. In this game, it's all magic that's provided to you by Merlin. And so as Gawain, Merlin gives you access to these different things where you find magic and Merlin teaches you how to use it.
It's not Gawain?
It is not. It is not.
Okay.
But at any rate, so there's different types of magic, things like projectiles. There's the first spell that you pick up reminds me of a spell in a game which I'm going to mispronounce as Faxanadu, because that's what I always called it as a kid. But the initial spell you get in that game is almost identical to this one. Anyway, it shoots a little cloud in front of you, and it goes most of the way across the screen. But there are also weapons or sub-weapons spells. I'll get it one of these days, that home in on the enemy. So there's like a lightning spell, which will attack the enemy wherever it is. And it's very clever the way that this is implemented, because it tends to pick the closest object or the most threatening thing to you. And I never had a misfire where I was like, oh man, wish I had picked this other enemy. Which brings me to another thing, which is a bit of an improvement over Castlevania, and that is that scrolling the screen doesn't make enemies reappear at the same rate that it does on the NES or the Game Boy. So if you back up a little bit and then jump, an enemy that you've just defeated with a magic spell from a distance away doesn't reappear, which is a huge benefit.
More nods. Yes.
There's also this checkpointing system. So even without the extra help in the update, there's a fairly lenient compared to Castlevania checkpointing system where every few screens you're able to resume play from that screen after you die.
Ooh, that was a low bar to set, though. I mean,
it's true.
Don, I'll bet you would agree that the checkpointing system on the normal mode, not with the easy check marks on the options, I felt like it was a long way before I got to a checkpoint personally. But Don, did you feel that way, or did you make it to any checkpoints?
I don't know. My first run was my best run. My first run is the one where I felt like I beat the first boss, which was the eyeball thing. But then you guys were saying that wasn't even the first boss.
Mhm.
So I never made it back to that eyeball thing after using the updated difficulty settings.
Oh
So I
wow.
don't really know what the checkpoints were.
There's a
Frankly.
little statue that appears on selected screens, and it's usually about 4 screens that you have to traverse before you hit one of those checkpoints.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so it's
That's in
it's
the new settings. The
that's in the
statues.
old settings. In the new
Oh,
settings, if you tick that box, if from what I read,
uh-huh.
it will issue a checkpoint at every screen as you
Oh,
scroll it.
no,
Um,
nice.
so whether or not there's that little
Oh, that's
statue,
true. Yeah,
yeah,
when I was playing yesterday, I was definitely dying and only going back one screen.
yeah, which is that
The
that
first
is
screen.
really helpful. Um,
Yeah.
the thing that initially caught me with this game, and I played it in perhaps the worst conditions for playing a game like this. I played it in a hot car during half of a lunch break for a couple of days, and then I played it laying down in bed for a little while, and then finally I just could not beat the final boss, and so I sat down at a table and played it a lot more focused, like I would an NES game, and I blasted through it, no damage, all great. So
Wow.
I have got to say that if you do plan on playing this game, I would suggest that you play it in a more focused uh, way, or at least that really helped me a lot. Um, the first time I was kind of expecting more of a casual experience than it really was, and so I found myself frustrated with my lack of ability that first day, and I expressed this to Don and Ryan, and told them that I was a terrible video game player and all this good stuff, but sitting with it some more and really thinking about it and really processing the experience that the game was providing me allowed me to enjoy it so much more. Really putting myself in the mindset of being 8 years old or whatever, and playing Castlevania, and just having a great time getting an extra inch further in the game. So
I wanted to touch on something that you
yeah,
mentioned right there. I would say that the gameplay in this game rewards you for being very methodical. There's, I feel like there's no chance for you to get frustrated and speed run the thing. Like if I played Mario a few times and I wasn't getting where I wanted to go, I'm just think, oh well, forget it. I'm just going to go as fast as I can. Boom, boom, boom. Go through a number of obstacles. But here, no. Like if an enemy comes at you from front or back, there's no outrunning it. And if you try, it's going to catch up to you once you're at a second enemy, and then you're definitely toast. So, like, I feel like the gameplay is such that when something comes at you, you face it, you defeat it in the patterns of that particular enemy, and then you move forth and you do that same thing to the next enemy for their particular fighting patterns,
mhm.
and then you move on. Otherwise, oh boy. So I totally agree with Nick that you really need to be in a focused mindset and have that methodical approach to playing this game. I feel like it was really well thought out because for all the reasons Nick said previously, but also because of this timing feature that exists almost like ubiquitously throughout each level. It's not just like, oh well, don't outrun the first one because then the second one's, it's like don't outrun the 37th one because then the 38th one is going to get you too.
Right.
It's like very consistently paced and placed, in terms of the enemies.
Mhm.
It would, but if you are methodical about it and don't get in a hurry and learn the actions of each enemy, I can understand for the most part. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that man-eating plant, Nick. But for the most part, I think that you can get through this game unscathed once you learn those things.
Definitely.
So, hey, Nick, there's a couple of Seymours in this game, a
Mhm.
couple of man-eating plants. One is small and not a boss. The other one is giant and it's a boss. And I'm curious, like the giant boss is where I'm currently stuck. Can
Ah,
you help me with any of that? Because
yeah,
Nick's
probably.
Nick's not provided his own humble brag, so I'll provide it for him. Nick completed the game, so everyone applause for Nick. How do you defeat that man-eating plant, Nick?
Okay, you're making it too hard on yourself. So it tries to trick you with its pattern because it seems more difficult than it is. Um, if you observe, and you'll come across this type of pattern again with other bosses, but it has essentially a 1, 2, 3, 2 type pattern. So, what I mean by that is there is a mode where it shoots, and this is a minor spoiler, by the way, but there's a mode where it shoots these laser beam looking things at you. I guess they're
They're like laser
plant,
worms, right?
plant tentacles or something. I
Yeah.
don't know. Anyway, you have just acquired that shield. So all you have to do is hit down,
Ah.
hold down, and
Oh,
it'll block those.
silly.
Then the next phase is that it will burrow underground.
Yep.
And it will start chasing you in this like dirt mound.
Yep.
You have to run until it's almost centered underneath you, and then jump, and it will harmlessly pop up. And then you have to repeat that about 3 times, and then it'll go underground again. When it comes back up, it is totally harmless, and you can just wail on it. And then I lied. There's a 4th phase, and the 4th phase is that it will pop up 3 at a time.
Yeah.
But they're just like peekaboo. Here they are, and then they disappear. So as long as you're not where they pop up, you're good.
Okay, so for that, for the peekaboo, it's basically dumb luck, right? Like you're either over top of one of those things or you're not.
You have time enough to move, even if you're over time.
Are they always in the same place?
No, it's random. You just got to watch. Watch the ground. It's a plant. You got to look at the ground, man.
Okay. Great tip on the shield. Boy, that sure slipped my mind. I did not think about using that.
Shield becomes more important over time. So,
okay.
The game is teaching you to pay attention to that object. The shield becomes massively important later.
Cool. All right. Enough about man-eating plants. Don, were you able to make your way toward any of the crank integration on this game?
No. I did see in the video using an elevator or lift or something. And I did read that it only pops up a couple times where you need the crank. And I do like games that use the crank, but it's not overpowering.
Yeah. I thought this game incorporated the crank in a pretty great way. You didn't have to like whip it out during a battle scene or anything. Like it was, again, true to the form of this game, very methodical. Okay, maybe I haven't reached that one.
No, it's the first one.
But the ones, what?
Oh. The ogre, yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I was thinking of the bridge that extends.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah, it gives you a little time there to sort of work with it. Okay, Nick, you're right. Good job. But
Thanks, Ryan.
For the most part, except for the actualies that Nick gave me, for the most part, you're using it out of battle and for very appropriate things. Like, okay, we're into the spoiler cast at this point, just so everybody knows. But there's a point at which a bridge gets pulled out through the use of your crank. Don mentioned the GIF that's available on the itch page that shows you these like movable platforms or books or elevators or what have you to be able to move them back and forth. It seemed like a really natural integration of those crank mechanics. I thought. What did you think, Nick, since you made your way through more of them?
Yeah, I mean, it's not overpowering by far. There was a lot of thought put into when these would pop up, as Ryan is saying. So, like, there's not like 100 enemies surrounding this crank thing that you need to progress. It gives you time to think about how you're going to approach this crank puzzle. And the later ones are a little more puzzly than the early ones, like Extend a Bridge. The well, yeah, that's really the extent of it. So it's pretty nice in that it doesn't force you to like pull that out in order to cast magic or use your sword or anything like that. So I appreciate the thought that went into the crank integration because it feels very natural.
Nick, I've got a question for you. So
Yeah.
I'm at Seymour right
Mhm.
now, and that's basically the end of level 2.
Yes.
The forest? I think it's the forest.
The caves. Yeah.
Caves, sure. Rocks, trees, same thing. Anyway, how many levels are there if I'm at the end of level 2 right now?
I think there are 6 stages, and then
Good
there's
golly.
2 kind of non-stages. One of them is just the final boss, and then
Wow.
one of them is the town that you get to, which you're about. Well, yeah. Again, we're spoiler in here, but right after that boss that you're fighting, you get to the town that Merlin advises you to go to in stage 1, and there you can buy permanent upgrades. So using the money that you acquire through each stage, you can buy different upgrades to your character.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you about that too, if those ever make any sense. Like
Yes.
I'm collecting these little bullseyes everywhere I go, but then they don't do anything.
Tons of sense. Yeah.
Awesome.
So once you get those are like gold coins of some kind, and you spend them and you get upgrades, like, for example, extending your health bar, extending your mana bar, or adding extra lives, those kind of things.
Very cool. Very cool. Wow. Neat. All right. Love it. Man, what a well thought out game. And I'm going to give it praise that there is little higher praise in my book. A game that I really connected with as a kid and again as an adult, and think that the enemy design and character design is a high watermark, is Gargoyle's Quest for the Game Boy. This game gave me Gargoyle's Quest vibes in terms of that same thing, a character design, enemy design. So fun to just look at these characters that are on the screen. I almost want to like pause the game and analyze their pixel data, and it's just so well done. Am I the only one who's feeling this way?
No, not at all. I mean, it's so neat to contrast this with, memories or recent memories of playing original Game Boy games where, you pause the screen and there's a cool looking skeleton or something, but it's only vaguely skeleton shaped. The high resolution of the Playdate just makes everything so beautiful. And this game, it reminds me, as far as enemy design, of like Mega Man, because there are different enemies which are a little more on the kind of cute side as far as just how they're composed. So I don't know if that was intentional to kind of distance it a little bit from Castlevania, which is more like, straight up zombies and skeletons and stuff, or if it was just the style they were going for. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess you're right about that, because there's a couple of like little knight type characters that I can sort of see as being Mega Man-esque. When you first said that, I crinkled my face and trying to think
I saw that.
of ways that this game was Mega Man-esque, because I did not get that feeling at all when playing it.
Only from the artwork and animations of the enemies, really. No other way at all.
I disagree a little bit, because I think most of the enemies are pretty organic, like the bats and the little grubs that crawl out of the ground, and the plants. And so I don't feel like any of that is very Mega Man-esque. That feels more Castlevania,
All right.
Gargoyles Questy to me.
Let me give you a for instance. What about the things in stage 1 that throw the little pellets?
Yes, agreed.
Okay.
The little knight guys.
Yeah.
I agree. I get some
How,
Mega Man-ish vibes from those.
maybe you haven't hit the charging guys yet.
Yes, I hit those too. Yep.
Okay. How about the boomerang guys?
I'm classifying the charging guys as also little knight guys, like the pellet throwing guys. Have not got to the boomerang throwing guys yet, but
Okay.
I do see them on the itch page. They look very similar to the charging guys to me, to my eye.
Yeah, same. But anyway, those all vaguely fall in that Mega Man-esque realm. But I wanted to touch on the animations, like during cutscenes and all those kind of things. So impressive. Just the amount of constant motion and how visible everything is. Ryan touched on this, but as you're walking, I was expecting a Castlevania Adventure level of visibility, which is to say not very much, but there's not going to be a lot happening on the screen. And I was shocked at how much stuff is just constantly happening. And enemies like the plant that Ryan's referencing, beautifully animated, just, constantly wiggling and organic and just so cool. So very well done, I think.
I've gone on record as saying I am very impressed with the art. I've given it some of my highest possible accolades, comparing it to Gargoyles Quest. My one qualm, and I'm trying to just be well-rounded here. I do have a qualm. They have these beautiful headshots of the characters when they're talking, and my one qualm is that Gawain and I'm sorry, how do you say that, Nick?
Gawain
and Guinevere almost look the same to me. Like they both got blonde hair. It's both kind of longish. They both kind of got a similar head shape. There's a lot of similarities between them. And I found myself when I was reading back and forth between their dialogue that I had to like take second and third looks to make sure I remembered who was saying what. So I wish there would have been a little more differentiation between those two main characters and the headshots. Wizard was perfectly identifiable, looks amazing. Every single one of them looks amazing. But in terms of like differentiating the characters from one another, that was my very minor gripe about that.
Yeah. I had a few minor suggestions or thoughts about the game. Do you mind if I express those?
I would like to hear them.
Okay. The first thing I thought was that it took a while for me to update to 1.1. So Don let us know that 1.1 was out a while ago, and it took me a while to download the update. Anyway, I finally did. And I tried to install it, and it would not install. I sideloaded it, that was fine, but on my Playdate, it wouldn't install. And I was looking at, I was manually triggering the install, and I noticed that the file size was almost double what it was on the initial download. And this is a big game. It's about 40 megabytes. So when I downloaded version 2, I was paying attention to that too. And it was almost identical in size to the first time. So about 40 megabytes. But when I installed the update, it was 80 some megabytes. And I was wondering so Don, you noticed that too. I was wondering if maybe there's some situation where patches are additive on the Playdate, or if there's some kind of bug in how it's reporting the file size or something like that. I would have to dive in deeper to figure out exactly what's going on, and probably develop a little application and update it a few times to really figure it out. But that was a little curious to me. Another thing.
Real quick, that was coming off of itch, right?
Yes.
Because when I look at my actual files I saved, it might have been I can't remember where I saw that, but my actual files that I have saved, there's only a 2,000th of a kilobyte difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're almost the same size, but I do remember seeing like, oh, it's twice the size. So I'm not sure if it's a side loading thing or just something's going on right now. We talked on our last podcast about there being a delay when you come in and out of the Playdate and in and out of settings.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you that white screen. You guys have that too, right?
Yes.
That's been since the last OS update. Maybe there's just something flaky right now they're working out.
Could be. Yeah.
Who knows?
So that's not a qualm about this game specifically. It's just something that I noticed. A qualm that I do have with this game, though, is that it is very dialogue heavy, and I love dialogue in games. I'm the visual novel person, so I love adventure games. I love role playing games. I love Arthurian legend. I love all this stuff. But one thing that I found a little, not frustrating, but interesting as a design choice. Well, it's fine, but it's just a thought that I'm having is that if there was a way to perhaps skip those cutscenes, like if you're seeing it for the 50th time, as I did in the end of the first stage.
Sure.
Yeah.
It does allow you to press A through them.
Oh yes, and I did employ that method, but you have to press it a bunch. There's another one that I saw a lot, and I was thinking, wow, that would be nice. Other than that, there's really very few quirks with the controls. There are a couple of things that I found with the crank actually.
We've entered UI corner with Nicholas Baldridge. Here we go.
So with the crank at the end of the first stage, you're fighting a boss and you meet up with Guinevere and she says, hey, stun this thing and then I'll shoot it with arrows. And I was talking with Ryan and I said, oh yeah, you gotta do this kind of complicated maneuver and you have like a really short time to do it and you got to do it over and over again. And Ryan's like, I just ignored all of that.
I'm very bad at following directions.
I wish I had known that you could ignore that because it was difficult. So you have to get out the crank after stunning this ogre that you're fighting, which is a rather complicated pattern at first, as they all are. And then you have to crank it to the appropriate spot and it gives you a little reticle or a little target indicator. And then you have to mash B just as quickly as you can while the thing is stunned. And then it gets back up and you have to repeat the pattern.
So I'm sorry to stop you, but when Guinevere shoots the arrow at the ogre, you've got to be really pumping B, like B.
That's what I did.
You just like give it a good old press and it'll do it.
You give it a good old press. And then once the arrow disappears from the screen, you can press it again. But I found myself, tapping it 65 times a second.
Okay. Because as Nick alluded to, I never was able to get Guinevere to shoot her arrow. So I just kept wailing on the ogre with Gawain and eventually defeated the ogre by wailing away. I still have not seen Guinevere shoot that arrow. I'll have to go back and try it again. But
it's a cool thing, but yeah, it was pretty difficult to do in the moment.
Agreed.
Yeah. And other than that, other crank interactions, they are well thought out, as we mentioned, but you can get stuck in a UI interaction that you don't understand you're in the crank interaction. So you have to initiate the crank interaction by pressing up. Then you crank, but it doesn't give you feedback as to which direction you need to crank. So like when you're extending the bridges, as you mentioned, you actually have to crank backwards towards you, or at least that's what I found. I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but at any rate, cranking it backwards towards you extends the bridge. Cranking it the other way does nothing at all. And so I was cranking like crazy and nothing was happening. So I cranked the other way and it was fine. But then you have to disengage yourself by pressing up, but that's also not specified in the UI. So it's a little tricky. But
Okay, can we talk about that for a second?
real quick, yes, because we're almost
Okay,
out of time.
I got it. So on that particular drawbridge interaction, did you click up and
Yes.
then crank? Okay,
Yes.
I was holding up and then
Okay.
cranking, so I did not experience the need to exit with the up button. Maybe you're
Okay.
supposed to hold. And the other thing I was going to mention there is that there was not an incredibly obvious visual for what was happening when I was cranking that bridge over.
Yes.
You kind of have to look down below and it
Yep.
slowly inches across. And it took me like a few attempts before I understood, oh, this is bridging. Now I understand. But it took me a minute.
Yeah. Other than that, those are my very minor critiques. And I love this game. Thanks so much for recommending it, Ryan, and for doing the Pixel panel. And Don, thank you for trying it. I'm sorry it wasn't your cup of tea, but there's always next time.
That's all right. Yeah, it's something special, and if it sounds even like you're a little bit interested, I'd say give it a shot.
Yeah, it's incredibly fleshed out. I didn't know anything about it aside from a quick GIF that I saw on Twitter, and it looked like it would tickle my fancy, and it did. It was a little frustrating at first, but I'm so glad, Pixelated Opus, that you decided to include some options. And I am a person who gets overwhelmed by options. I typically do not investigate options very heavily, but these options that were added were like literally 2 check boxes. And that's it.
Yep.
So I felt like that was digestible for me and really helped me progress further in the game. And even if and when I do complete this game, I'll feel like, oh, okay, I feel a sense of accomplishment, but I know that there's another harder level way of playing this game that I can go back and do. So
Yep.
I feel like this game has some extraordinarily long legs.
Yes.
And I can't wait to keep playing it.
Well, we're almost out of time, but thanks so much for listening, everybody. Check the show notes for all the links that we discussed, including links to the Pixel Panel game. And if you're looking for more Castlevania type action, check out trainpinball.com. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Wow, Nick.
Got it yourself this time.
Yeah.
Good job.
You can
Gotta
also
get that in the
find
show
us
notes.
Playdatepodcast.com and hop in the Discord. Yeah, play some Guess the Game and coffee golf with us. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.